Pre-agenda meeting. Ooh, that's loud. It got loud quick. Scott? Is that too loud, folks? We good? Okay. Loud as it is, much less when you amplify it, so excuse me. Anyway, I'll call the meeting to order for the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, September 5th, 2023, held here in the chambers at 3 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody today. I'm glad to be sitting in the air conditioning instead of that stifling heat out. Madam Clerk, we have in attendance Commissioner Burns. We have in attendance Vice Chair Britton. We also have in attendance Commissioner Carswell, as well as our County Finance Officer, our County Attorney, and our County Manager, Madam. I would remind everyone to please silence their mobile devices. And then as you come to the lectern to speak this afternoon, please make sure the microphone is activated before speaking, so those your remarks can be heard on the YouTube recording. Gentlemen, at this time we've had an opportunity to look at the agenda as presented. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that carries 4-0. Next brings us to item number 3, presentations. Under presentations, item 1, Pet of the Month. This will be presented by Kay Drone. Madam Clerk.
Thank
Our
you, Mr.
part-time Animal Services Director.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is your monthly update from Animal Services that will bring a dog to the meeting in need of its forever home, and they will feature a cat via PowerPoint presentation. We do have 26 dogs and 56 cats in the shelter today, and be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have on Caitlin's behalf.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Thank you, Madam Clerk. That'll bring us to item number 2, National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And this will be presented by, is anybody here? I don't see anybody here. This will also be presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I don't have my notes in front of me, but this is a proclamation to declare October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and the ladies from Vocational Rehabilitation will be here at your regular meeting to officially request this proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Put you on the spot twice.
Yes.
Thanks. That'll bring us to item number 3 under presentations, gentlemen. Presentation and resolution of support for My Future North Carolina. And this will be presented by Kim Case, Education Development Regional Impact Manager, My Future North Carolina. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you, Chairman Woolley, members of the Commission, for giving me just a moment or two to speak to you about My Future NC. I understand that you're aware of our organization. Since last November, I've served as the Northwest Prosperity Zone Regional Impact Manager, and so we're beginning to think about local attainment collaboratives. And so I'm going to just do a couple slides and then ask for any questions. Then I believe I'll be back hopefully at the later meeting in the month. As you know, My Future NC was formed out of a bipartisan House legislation, House Bill 664, back in 2019. We have a goal of $2 million by 2030, and that means we want 25 to 44-year-olds with post-secondary degrees or credentials leading to jobs with family-sustaining wages. To meet that goal, we work with cross-sector partners, and that's part of the ask today is for Burke County to join with all cross-sector partners in the county to endorse a resolution to begin development of a local plan looking at Burke County numbers specifically, and then to join regional work as those opportunities present themselves. Right. You know that we've been voted number 1 in business for the 2nd year in a row, and so this imperative is even more critical. A robust education system. This chart shows minimum education levels for future jobs in North Carolina. If you'll notice, the majority of jobs will require post-secondary degrees or credentials. When I speak about credentials, I do mean that those are credentials with short-term welding, very needed, construction trades, all of those credentials that lead to family-sustaining wages, but are good jobs, in addition to those 4-year degrees and beyond. Some challenges, you know, the challenges to the job market and their job openings. Also that there is this leaky pipeline. When we look at our high schoolers who enter as 9th graders, we only have about a third who actually finish with a degree or credential within 6 years of graduation, which would put them at 24 years old. So about the time as an adult parent, you would want your young adults to be moving to the workforce. We want to make sure they're ready for that. Some numbers across our prosperity zone. Okay. And right now, partly because of pandemic, partly because of a number of things in our economy, we're about 31,000 below where we need to be. We work in 3 ways: accelerating actions such as this, monitoring and reporting progress, and you'll see our, I think you have county profiles with you. And then we also advocate for policy solutions. We do have an advocate who works with the legislature to talk about the things that are needed locally. Another reason this local effort is as important as it is that your voices are heard directly in the legislature. Okay. There are 7 other colleagues that I work with across the state. We're divided by prosperity zones and come out of NC Commerce. This is a picture of our profile. We can dig into that deeper at later date. The transition areas across the profile and key performance indicators that are listed there. One piece that's really important, significant, as those profiles look at opportunities for growth. These are across the state, and in Burke County, the 3 are opportunity youth, 16 to 24-year-olds who are neither employed nor enrolled. FAFSA completion, because people identify funding as a reason they don't go back to school, and then transitioning to post-secondary. There's some numbers, and I'm going to flip through these quickly, but one I want to stop on. Burke County, Work in Burke, was involved in a local educational attainment collaborative, started about 2 years ago now, ended last December, and they've moved on to another project that's called Jobs, Education, and Training that we support. And so work closely with Sarah, the Industrial Commons, and the work that happens there. So you're already ahead of the game in that local educational attainment collaborative. These are the numbers from 2018 to 21 that have made move above 5%. We did just release, and I don't have that for you with this slide, but the numbers for all counties across the state. All right, and I'm going to leave here and open it for questions. This is locally owned and driven work, although I do represent a state organization that thinks about how we might collaborate to increase our collective impact toward educational attainment. So I'll stop there, and if there are questions, things that I can, or if there's something else that you see that you'd like me to talk about in these slides, I'll be glad to.
Thank you. Great presentation, gentlemen.
One quick question. Highly qualified credential, how is that determined? Is that something that has to be listed in the NC Works directory, library of credentials, or the community college systems list of credentials?
So I'll flip to this slide. Currently, there's an NC Workforce Credentials Collaborative that is led by business and industry. They're working alongside some other organizations to determine which of those credentials actually lead to family-sustaining wages and which ones are needed in our workforce. If there's a credential that's offered at any organization and they want to add that to the list, it goes through a process with this collaborative.
Okay.
Gentlemen?
Just one question. Are you seeing, or what kinds of things are you seeing from others who are embracing this type of resolution and attainment? What are folks planning to do to try to actually make this happen? What are you seeing?
So it's very new work. Caldwell County was the first county to actually have all these essential partners, beginning with county commissioners. All of the municipalities, except one, and I'm on the docket for that in September, have agreed that this is a good idea and we'll develop a plan. Our educational partners in the business and industry as well. The first thing that they're planning to do is to hold a meeting with those cross-sector partners to look at what you're already doing. Because the work that's happening is, and even in our region, is pretty expansive. What we don't have is kind of this laser focus on attainment as a county and as a region. So one of the first pieces of work is just coming together to identify all of the buckets of work that are happening. I was just speaking earlier with Commissioner Burns about some things that are happening with community colleges across the region that probably aren't known by some of our cross-sector partners. I've retired from Caldwell County Schools after 34 years, and my last role was coordinator of innovation. And so in that role, it was to bring business and education together. And what I found is the conversation between those two entities, even though they want the same things, sometimes it just isn't the same yet. And so having that conversation to help all cross sectors understand the work we're doing, then choose the pieces that make the most sense for each county and elevate that work. So that's the process that will come next, getting people together, that collective impact so that we all understand the same language and all have truly focused similar goals. You saw the KPI slide. There's 18 of those. We can't work on them all at one time. So what makes sense for you, and coming to some understanding about that collectively, and then building on good work.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that you guys are doing tremendous work, and the upgrades that you guys have made to the dashboard over just the last year and a half, there's some really good information there, and I appreciate it. I use it nearly daily.
Thank you. And we do, as our partners identify work that they're interested in doing, grants. We can support grants that lead toward educational attainment, write letters of support. There are 8 of us, regional impact managers across the state, and we come from this really diverse backgrounds. We have a school counselor, we have a social worker who worked in New York City and Washington, D.C., so she understands those urban pieces. We have an NC Works experience level, so just our range of information and what we can bring as a group is pretty, I'm just real blessed to be part of the group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at our NCACC map book that we actually just distributed with the data from My Future NC, and I can't understand, and it's Jeff's question that he alluded to. Caldwell is ranked 66th, we're ranked 65th, Cleveland County is ranked 69th. That almost takes me aback, since all of the work that we feel like we've been doing in this arena of education. Is there, Jeff, that's a question. I know we can't pinpoint anything. How did we arrive at these numbers?
Now, are you talking about the
Educational
from
attainment.
2018 to 21?
This is for 21.
For 21.
Yes, our numbers for 21 furnished by My Future NC.
Okay.
Just went out to our members of the association.
Those look at our credentialing, and I'd have to do a deeper dive into those honestly because I haven't seen those numbers from that particular book that are ranked. They're very new from the 2018 to the 2021 comparisons. So I'd really have to dig into it honestly to answer that question, as I need to.
But I still feel like our numbers are probably, our rankings are going to be not so great.
I think, and I'm not going to say for certain, but the numbers of opportunity youth in the Western Piedmont Council of Government region are really high. And so I think that could contribute to that. So that's an area that the Work and Work program is really reaching out to in conjunction with the school system. The other piece that we noticed on the county profiles, actually in our essential partner meeting, was that the number of parents with higher ed degrees or credentialing could be increased. And so looking at, what are we doing for our adults as well, could be something that we need to consider. Those questions are why we need the collective, because they can't be answered by any one group. And another piece that's kind of interesting, when we do those local plans, we can look at local data as well. I know with the opt-in internship program from Work and Work that they've had some good success getting those numbers of students into educational programs or into employment. So those numbers should be included in your local plans. And then if there's things that we have questions about, I can take those back to our team at the state and say, these are questions that my local partners have. What do we need to know? What else can we do? Who else is there that can be a resource? So beginning the conversations is very important.
As we look at Opportunity Youth,
Yes.
we just put this book out like last week, Burke County's ranked 96th. That's saddening, to see that. I wish there were some things that we probably could take a look at to help us out there.
I think that across our region, Opportunity Youth for Caldwell, Burke, Catawba, and Alexander is an area that we could even collaboratively think about in the area. I agree. FAFSA completions, just flipping through these last slides, that's one of those pieces that's, I won't say low-hanging fruit because it requires trust from different groups to complete. But we leave about $100 million, that's on that next slide, about $100 million on the table in federal dollars to get students to school. So answering some of those questions is important as well.
I think that's what we're trying to do here with maybe some new resolutions that we're coming up with that we will be able to assist the schools a little bit better than we have in the past. I don't know that everything that's out there, we just have to make some good decisions on what we can do to assist the schools as we move forward. But great presentation, and I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I'd love to dig into that information more and see that book as well. Thank you.
I have one more quick question. That was kind of what was driving my initial question about from the community college side. Credentialing can be awarded at tier level 3, so I'm wondering if you guys are only capturing tier 2, 96 above in a credential, or are you looking at credentials that are generated at 24 hours?
We look at levels 2 and 3. There's 4 levels. The foundational that we don't count, although those are very essential and something to have in local conversation, the soft skills, durable skills. But we look at 2 and 3 in our capture of the data. The 4th level, we hope that they already have that family sustaining wage job, and those are add-ons to even increase those wages. Those are open for conversation as well.
What about adult basic education?
That's a great question. I'd have to dig.
Because I think that would play into some of the data that you talked about today. And we are, in the community college system, I know that there's an effort to try to bring credentials to adult basic education.
Yes. And we have the CCP at the high school level, so they're earning some of those middle level credentials at the high school level. So it doesn't seem like that's, and it could be there already. The credentialing question always is the one that we want to dig into more about. What are we offering and how do we do that better?
And what was the driving force behind redefining Opportunity Youth from Disconnected Youth?
It was just a verbiage piece to align it with one of the data sources.
Okay, so I mean, I know it extended that range of people as well.
Yes, the 16 to 24, well, 16 for us is the dropout age, and the 24 is the age when you believe that we should be finished with 6 years post-high school.
Okay.
And some of our terms have changed from our first profiles based on feedback from partners and an interest in getting our data as close and good as we can.
I would like to see an effort around aligning these credentials.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've gone through the process, and it's not. It can be a very easy process. You can call down and they'll add it for you that afternoon, or there's, So I think in moving these numbers, if we could look at that credentialing process, and particularly if we can include adult basic education, that would be. I think that would move the numbers quickly.
That's a great suggestion.
Any other questions, comments, Jim? One thing I learned in our last meeting with you at the college, and made reference to, trust, and some that's, never really occurred to me as far as FAFSA, getting those numbers up, that a lot of parents just don't give up that information. And so how do you overcome that?
We've had some success, and I'll shout out Allegheny County. They have a college and career access team at their high school. Team's been together a couple years, and they've done some pretty creative initiatives to invite people in, to have the conversation. Our president CEO, Cecilia, says it's one by one by one. It really is. Those numbers are only going to increase as we work individually with the individuals who need those credentials and bring them in, and collectively from this higher leadership level to make sure those opportunities are there to have the conversation. So it's both.
And then one last thing you explained to me, because you know, when people learn about what this is, the thing is, you know, we got a long-term goal, but the way you were set up funding-wise, explain that, why it's sustainable, and you're not susceptible to the ups and downs of the current politics of the moment.
Yes, we are a state-led nonprofit, and because we were set up as a nonprofit in 2019, we have funding from cross-sector partners. We have some strong philanthropic partners, but we're also looking for how do we build these educational plans so that they are sustainable, that building on the work that's already happening, so we're not creating something new. We're really building on what's here, but looking at it in a new and different way. We are full staff now, and we do have a small staff at headquarters to look into the research, and I'll go back to my researcher and dig into that data. Our lobbyists, so that we make sure that whatever voices come from the local region, and he'd like to come and visit with us in our region. Told him he's welcome just as soon as I get things together here to come and talk about our specific needs and what that means for us locally. Also really focusing on business and industry and those partnerships, because this is not just about education, it's about what's good for business and industry. So focusing on those partners as well.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Please.
So if you look at the NC Works credentialing list, it's a much shorter list than what's contained in the community college's credential list.
Yes.
Is there any effort to try to?
Ours, the list we have now is a little more than 150, and it's on the nccareers.com. One of the, from my understanding, one of the difficulties, obstacles, challenges, call it what you will, is that some of the credentials come from private credentialing agencies, and so getting the cooperation from those entities to share some information, sometimes it's not that they want, it's just that getting our systems to talk to one another. The other thing with our adult learners is sometimes they leave before they credential, then we have to try and capture that information. So communication is a bit of the credentialing issue. But yes, the more aligned we can be in all those efforts, and then for the folks who are experienced at what's happening in each of those entities to let folks know. I have seen policies be changed when some collectives came together and there was a need and there was just misinformation, and they were able to go, oh, that wasn't even a law. We thought it was. But because of conversations, critical conversations with people who knew experts, they were able to overcome some things pretty quickly. Thank you.
Jimmy, any other questions, comments? And thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Safe travels. Gentlemen, that brings us to item number 4 under presentations, department employee recognitions, 50th anniversary. This will be presented by our good friend Jason Black, our EMS director. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Exciting time for Burke County EMS as we celebrate our 50th anniversary. We'd also like to recognize some employees for their excellent care. I think we have 8 or 9 coming up at the meeting that have either been involved in a cardiac arrest where somebody was completely pulseless and breathless, and now these people are out in the community walking and talking. Some great work there. We also would like to present the Mission EMS Gold Award again from the American Heart Association, which those guidelines have changed a little bit this year. They made them a little more stringent, which is good. Made us step up our game, but we were already there, so we're going to get that also this year. I'd like to present that. And also, I've got a PowerPoint, just start a little bit with it, of our 50th anniversary. And I'd like to present it just to show sort of where we've came and where we're going, and the big difference in EMS care. We don't realize that EMS only started, 50 years ago. It's a pretty new profession. So here we are back in 1975, our EMS base won't open. Prior to that, September 1st of 1973, the funeral home said we're not going to provide ambulance service anymore. So you're going to have to do it. So we had some ambulances based at the hospital, ran out, and they were basically EMT ambulances that went out and served. Our first bases were 1975, Station 1 up behind the hospital. Station 2 in Rutherford College, or Valdez, came shortly thereafter, and then we added the Glen Alpin Station. Service expansion. We also added Station 4 in Hildebrand, which is October 1st, 1999, and Station 5 up at Jonas Ridge. And then we followed with Station 7, which is across town, and Station 6 in George Hildebrand to serve those communities. It's pretty interesting as you look back. New treatment in 1978, we expanded to where we can give IVs, which back then you had to call in and say, "Doc, can I give this person an IV?" Now that's just second nature. I mean, we put them in if we need it, we do it. Now we're actually doing advanced interosseous needles where we go right into the bone. You know, we can't get an IV, so it's just amazing looking back. CPR training, back in 1979, if you notice, it's mouth to mouth. I know it's a dummy, but nobody's even thought about gloves then. And then today we have automatic CPR devices. Have automatic CPR devices, and we can insert a breathing tube into the patient's lungs and breathe through them directly that way. So when we get on scene, we put them on this to do chest compressions that are 40 to 50% more effective, and then we can breathe directly into their lungs, which is just wonderful. Cuts down on manpower. A lot of this came about with COVID, you know, trying to limit the amount of people in the back of the ambulance around patients and stuff, and the dire need of EMS employees. But it's actually proven to be very beneficial for patients. Paramedic program didn't start till 1983, which and didn't graduate until 1984. So a paramedic, if you think about it, you start out as an EMT advanced, you can give some medications and IVs and such, and a paramedic can pretty much do in the back of the truck what they do in the ER without some of the testing. I mean, they can give lots of medications, speed your heart up, slow your heart down, stop it for a second, hope it restarts in a normal rhythm. And what we did with the community college has really helped us and as a agency and the county is our EMS Academy, where we take people off the street with no medical knowledge whatsoever, train them, and they get their EMT, they start working on the trucks, and then they go on to get their paramedic. That's actually saved us from disaster with the employment situation. And it wasn't until 1987 until the new equipment of gloves were added. You think about that. That's just, you know, running out, and that's when AIDS, you know, came to the forefront in the country, and stuff like that. But now we're actually in a partnership with UNC Blue Ridge that we can do blood transfusions in the field. And that's wonderful in trauma situations where people lose a lot of blood in a trauma situation. We can give all the IV fluids in the world, but it's not going to help them because they don't carry oxygen. So we can give blood. This is some of our call stats. 7,000, 9,095, and now we're up to 19,000 in 2022. 2023, we're going to probably break the 20,000 calls. Our average response times, this is the emergency calls only, is 10:38. As big as our county is, you know, in some of the areas that we have, such as South Mountains and Brindletown and way out Chesterfield, you know, that's a decent number. Would we like it better? Would we like it under 9 or 8 minutes like a lot of places? Yes, we have, but that's going to take a lot of work to get there. Beyond the ambulance, what we do, a lot of this, people don't realize what all Burke County EMS does. We just hired our first community paramedic. Our special operations team is one of the best special operations team in the country. Well, there's a slide about that. A peer team, which is education, recruitment. We do advanced medicine and we do tactical medicine. Community paramedics started this July, and they do follow-up visits. They do, or she does, we only have one, follow-up visits. Try to keep people from going to the hospital that doesn't need to, because ERs are slam-packed. The people that call a lot that just need medications refilled or something like that, she can help with. On her second day here, she diverted 4 EMS trips in one day. So that was a great thing. Special operations, we have the Linville Gorge. Our special operations medics are the ones that you see on ropes, you know, going down in the gorge and extracting these patients, providing life-saving treatments in that environment. Also, here's a picture of South Mountains. That was, I think the falls are over here, and there was someone in the water. This is just an aftermath of some of the rigging they'd set up to get them out. And then this is a heart team where they come in with helicopters. We currently don't have any heart team members, but we have the training, and we help those guys. It's mostly Charlotte Fire now, go in and extricate people with a helicopter. Also, Burke County, along with emergency management, is the only Type 2 water rescue team that is a state asset made up of entirely of EMS personnel. Here we are standing by Charlotte, and Asheville, Western North Carolina, flooding at the coast. Here we are being deployed, and this is, I think, a hurricane at the coast that we have been deployed on. We also are peer. We go into schools, educate people, try to recruit people, job fairs and such. We give also hands-only CPR training to the community. That's available. State medical assistance team. We do have a state medical assistance team for big, huge events that they may call us. I think the last one, we don't get called a lot, usually because they call for the Swiftwater team, and that our resources are to it, so we can't really respond to SMAT. I think the last SMAT deployment was a big fire at a chemical plant in Spruce Pine, and we rolled the SMAT team up there. And then football standbys. Every high school football event in the county we cover, and we also do other events. I think this may be the mud run or something prior to it. Tactical medicine. This is SWAT member, Captain Hood. He's on the SWAT team. We're the only SWAT medics in the state that are sworn law enforcement officers. So he provides that service. And here's just an article. I think the last time, unfortunately, the SWAT team had to discharge a firearm, they'd shot a gentleman, and Captain Hood was there and provided life-saving treatment with him. And that person would have died before we got him to the hospital if he wouldn't have been there. So we just want to say thank you for our amazing employees, past and present, and for taking great care of the citizens of Burke County for 50 years. So that's pretty much the presentation. If you have any questions, any additions that you would like, or if you'd like me to take something out of the presentation, I'll be happy to.
Jason, that's fantastic. Gentlemen, questions, comments?
I really like the snow pictures in the beginning.
I know, didn't get any last year, but we found one.
I can tell you how far we advanced. In 1969, I needed a part-time job when my first child was born, and I obtained my first aid card and my ambulance driver's card and went to work for Kirksey Funeral Home. We would receive a call, and our job was to jump into the Cadillac ambulance, drive it as fast as we could to the scene, pick up the victim, throw him on a gurney, and then the driver would drive as fast as that Cadillac would go, and the guy in the back would hold the patient to make sure he never rolled off the gurney. And we would arrive at Grace Hospital and hope that you were still alive.
Yeah.
And that was in the day. And that's exactly what we did all over this county. I look at this and I'm just absolutely amazed at what we've done over the years. Jason's been around to see that. He's been around a long time. But that was the way it happened. We had a station in Morton, and we had a station at Kirksey Funeral Home in Valdez, and had several Pontiacs and a couple of Cadillacs, and those were the ambulances in the day. And then, unfortunately, sometimes you'd pull in over here, and Dr. Giles would say, "Don't unload them, just go on to Winston-Salem."
Yeah.
You know, so we have come a long way, and I do appreciate everybody that has works for you and has worked for Burke County over those years. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of training to get to where we're at today.
Thank you.
I would like to say, looking at your presentation, I felt a little old. I think I started as a first responder with Akron Township probably a year after Gloves became a thing. And then I saw the South Mountain Park, or the South Mountain State Park, and I remember my first EMT classes. There were two Rangers from there. It was their first attempt at being certified. And then looking at where you guys have come, I mean, I'm blessed to be on your advisory committee, and I listen to you guys talk around the table, the dedication, the time it takes to do what you do, the training that's required now as opposed to what was required back in the day when I was there is unbelievable. Not only do I want to give a shout out to you and your staff, I want to give a shout out to their families too. Because
Absolutely.
there's a lot of dinners that go uneaten, and we just appreciate the commitment. And it's a lifestyle. It's not a job, and we appreciate you for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think, speaking of Commissioner Carswell's comments, one of the events that led to really getting an ambulance service in Burke County was a bad wreck in Glen Alpin at Bottom Drop. There was two vehicles hit head on and multiple fatalities and stuff, and so the history, I like the history of it, but I like where we're going also. That's why my tagline on my email is "Tradition with a Future." You know, want to respect the tradition, but also looking forward. And we're still a new, EMS is still a new entity in the healthcare realm, so there's a lot of growth that we can do.
Gentlemen, anything else? Great comments. I can't imagine seeing you in the back of that thing rolling around trying to keep on a gurney. That is.
You the driver or the whole?
I was going to say, who drew the short straw?
We had a young guy named Browning who lived up at Glen Alpin. He was called Driver Browning. I sat in the back and made sure they didn't roll off. But I did have a first aid card.
Yeah.
And you talked about the Cadillac, the best of my memory certainly was a Hearst.
Riding in style. Well, and looking at those pictures too, as we were just talking about before the meeting, you know, our EMS base is as old as you organization, and so EMS base 1. So we're excited to get that project underway to get y'all a facility that's actually built for not cars but EMS vehicles that meet the standards today. So we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Jason, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda, gentlemen. That brings us to item number 5. GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This will be presented by Brian Epley, our County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll be brief. I just wanted to place this on the agenda to draw some attention and really highlight something that I think is cultural here at Burke County, but and point out most recently for the second year in a row, our finance office, and as the really organizationally wide, we've been recognized nationally for excellence in financial reporting. So, you know, certainly want to, it starts at the board level with policy about fiscal management and oversight, and flows through from you all through the entire organization. Certainly want to congratulate Margaret and her team. They don't give these away. Again, national recognition is something that's, I think speaks to the professionalism, the accuracy, and the real, you know, the dedication to transparent and good financial reporting. So I'll ask her to come up. She may have some words she wants to say or questions from the board, but I did want to take just a brief moment and highlight that achievement, and allow her to speak to you all about her team and their accomplishment.
Thank you. We are excited to get it a second year, and he's right, it isn't easy. It adds several steps. After the financial reports are done and the auditors are done with it and the LGC is done with it, then we go back in and we do several other areas that have to be added, a letter of transmittal, certain other documents have to be put with it, then we have to fill out the application. It takes all of us, certainly from your level all the way down. We couldn't do it without all the departments doing their piece of getting us the information from financial reporting, turning in their items, and doing through the year, doing the financial things they need to do to keep us within policy, because that's a very important piece of it. Within our finance office, I do want to mention that everybody does a little bit for us to get these reports done. They have different assignments, but particularly Jessica Helms and Brian Neeft, they take on a lion's share of assisting me with doing the report each year. So I do want to mention them particularly, that without them, we probably would still not be getting this. And we're excited and hope that as the auditors sit over there today, they came today to start this year's work, that we will hopefully finish the report this year and turn it in again. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. We appreciate your work. Any questions for Margaret or the manager?
Just well done. Very proud.
All right, thank you, Margaret. This will bring us to item 4 on our agenda, scheduled public hearings. And we'll hear from our director, Alan Glines. Alan, afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. For your consideration is would be a public hearing for a rezoning request by Mr. Kenneth Ross, who owns a property on Rodeo Lane. Sorry about the misspelling in that report. It's right off of US 64 South. Next slide. The property is residentially zoned. The request is to rezone it from residential 2 to general business. Mr. Ross owns the property in front, which is already zoned general business. He'd like to have both of them be able to be utilized for commercial development. So he's making that request. You do see it in this map here at the bottom. It's sort of highlighted. R2, but right behind a row of general business properties. The future land use map, of course, is going to points out that there's a mix of residential and commercial uses in this area, being Highway 64 South. And so this would require, if it was approved, would require a change to the future land use map to match up to the general business zoning request. The planning board reviewed this in their July meeting. They did vote to recommend approval for you all. So we'll be bringing that forward at our meeting next month, or later in the month. Can I answer any questions for you?
Jim, any questions, comments?
I know it's a line issue, but where that point comes down off the triangle, the previous map showed that it looked like there was a right-of-way through there. Is that
Question?
where the point is on the R2 that's coming down into the...
Probably meeting the middle of the road. So it's
Okay.
it's probably zoning to the middle of the road and it splits to the middle. So that's probably why we're seeing a little discrepancy.
So it's not connected?
No.
Okay.
So Alan, that is just going to be an extension of the already existing business
Right.
that's already been used up to this point, really, anyway.
Yeah, this gentleman, I think he's sort of tried to lay off that backtrack, but he's, it's kind of hard to not park a trailer there or two, for hauling and other business uses, but
So for all intents and purposes,
Yeah.
it's pretty much that's what the use is for.
yeah. We have a few photos attached to the report, and it's kind of, other commercial uses nearby. There's a gas station on the corner of Rodeo Lane and US 64 South, so it's sort of a quiet corner of Burke County.
Jim, any questions, comments anymore? All right, Alan, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, that'll bring us to item number 5, consent agenda, and item number 1 under consent agenda, resolution in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is your annual request to declare October as in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and encourages folks to get, testing, increase their knowledge about this disease, its cause, prevention, diagnosis, and treatment and care. And if you like, wear pink to the meeting for October.
Jim, comments? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That'll bring us to item number 2, reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. This will be presented by Ellen Glines again.
Thank you again. Every September, when terms are ending, we will ask for reappointments, and so that's what we're doing for the Burke County Board of Adjustment. We have 3 members whose terms are finishing up, and that includes Jenny Cook, Ray Johnson, and Joyce Coonahan, and Ed Halliburton, 4 members, sorry. And they would all like to be reappointed, and so that would, if approved, their terms would end September 2026.
Thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, questions, comments? If not, without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to reappointments to the Burke County Planning Board.
A similar situation. We have reappointments. Oh, actually, this is the first full appointment for Brian King from the east end of Burke County. Just was appointed for a term that was, Mr. Love came off, and so there's a few months left. He would be appointed for a 3-month term. Sarah Chester in the west and Joyce Coonahan, she's the only member that serves in both boards, to be also on the Burke County Planning Board for that September 30th appointment. Now, all members desire reappointment and are in good standing. However, we've had some attendance issues with Ms. Chester. Many of you know how busy she is in the community, and she'd like to stay on. We've discussed this a few months back about what's been going on in her life and how busy she's been, but she's committed to the board. She'd like to stay on if you'll have her do that, but we could reappoint the other members for 3 years, and possibly reappoint her for 1 year in review. In the last week, we did receive an additional application, and that was from a local gentleman from Connolly Springs, Mr. Carroll Lewis, and he is self-employed with an automotive business, and he'd just like to serve the community. We provided that, I believe, in an email or in hard copy in front of you. So depending on what your wish would be, we could make this an item of decision or keep it on the consent agenda.
Gentlemen, I believe last time we had this occur, we did move it to items for decision, so I would say that would be the right choice here. So, Madam Clerk, if you'll please move that to items for decision. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Lewis, what, I guess he would represent the east, is that?
He would be an East member. Now, Mr. King was recently appointed to the East, so you know, he's had his 1 or 2 meetings under his belt, like to stay on for a full term. So if we have an application that comes in and we don't have an opening for that part of the county, we do hang on to these for at least a year or so, and we'll consider any kind of future openings. If somebody has to step down or that sort of thing, we could have them, you know, ready for appointment if bringing it back to the board.
So in terms of the decision item, would we consider Mr. Lewis for the east seat or the alternate, or how are we going to do that?
Well, he would be, you know, instead of Mr. King. So that would be your choice for you all to make. But like I said, Mr. King would like to, you know, to be your member from the East.
Anything else, gentlemen? Al, thank you, sir. Brings us to item number 4, approval of budget amendment number 2, FY 2023-2024. This will be presented by Mr. Epic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I made just a point of clarification or something worth mentioning as it relates to board appointments. We internally in the manager's office are working on a policy that the board can review and sometime in the future that would, I think, further articulate how to handle appointed board membership and attendance and participation and those type of things. We have some ordinance language that it lacks clarity about the appropriate mechanics. So as Mr. Glines mentioned, with this one particular reappointment having some attendance issues, trying to put a systematic approach into handling that to help the board in your application, I think is something that we'll circulate at a later date. Item 4 on the consent agenda is budget amendment number 2 on the year. The county is in receipt of 3 separate grants. The first 2 total $280,957. All of these are flow through, and those first 2 have to do with stream bank restoration. One being at Canoe Creek for Phase 1 project within Oak Hill Park. And then the third grant here is from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. It's $171,646, and it's additional revenue to help enhance adoption assistance services there in the Department of Social Services, which obviously is the programmatic function of what those folks do. So we're asking to approve those grants, those 3 grants, as well as the appropriate spend plan with each one of them. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, questions for Mr. Apple? Apparently he did too good a job. So without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on.
Sorry, just looking at this, just looking at the table.
So each grant has a revenue and an expense. Maybe you see that, for example, the North Carolina Department of Ag, the first line is, as indicated by the object code, the 433 would be the incoming revenue. The 533404 would be the outgoing expense. So we're just budgeting the full grant and the full expenditure for each of those 3. Does that answer? I was trying to explain the mechanics of the table.
I think so. Would one of those numbers not need to be in the decrease column, or are they all appropriately?
We're increasing the revenue and increasing the expense.
Okay.
So if we were doing debits and credits, you're right, we'd have one on the left, one on the right. But the way that it's set up, we're increasing the revenue, which inherently increases the amount that will be expended. So I can see how that would be confusing, but no, I think that's the way it's intended to be read.
Okay, maybe we'd add expense and on the line or something just to differentiate the in and out.
Right, I understand. The total ordinance is going up by the $452,603. So if you're looking at the spend side of our budget, that's the increase in spend. The offset to that spend plan is new revenue from these grants, and it totals to $452,603 also. So no local money, and I can see how that would be difficult to comprehend, but generally that's how it's supposed to work.
You know, some type of, Jeff, you want some type of notation, clarity purposes?
Everybody else is
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments?
We can modify the optic between now and the 19th to make sure that it's easier to read. That's no problem.
That way we can,
Yeah.
just something that gives a little clarity to that, because that's a good point, Jeff made.
Yeah, total new revenue in 452,603, total new expense going out 452,603, and we'll show it that way.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 5, Fire Marshal under consent agenda, proclamation of Fire Prevention Week for October 8th through the 14th, 2023, and this will be presented by Mr. Bishop. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Every year during the month of October, a week set aside to kind of highlight fire safety throughout the United States. This year it'll be from October 8th through the 14th. Some statistics related to fire throughout the United States. These will be 2021 statistics because of the way the federal fiscal year falls. So, fire departments responded to 1,353,500 fires in 2021. We had a total of 3,800 civilian deaths, 14,700 civilian injuries, and a total of $15.9 billion in damages. On average, a structure fire occurs every 65 seconds. The statistics for North Carolina in 2022 for fire deaths were 151. 2 of those were in Burke County. So far this year in Burke County, we've had 1 fire death. Home fires are decreasing as we move along into the future. However, our fire deaths are increasing. So during that week, a lot of the county fire departments, they'll go out to their schools and do presentations, the smoke alarm canvassing events and things of that nature. So we just like to highlight that week to express how important it is to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Comments, questions? Thank you. Without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Brings us to item number 6 under consent agenda, release refund report for August 2023, and this will be presented by our friend John Bridgers, tax administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. During the month of August, or through the month of August, released $245,793.26, with $32,936.10 being rebilled for a net release of $212,857.16, with no money being refunded. Vehicle tax system refunds over $100 was only 1, and that was $144.58. Any questions?
Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. John, tax collection report for August 2023.
So far for the year, property tax collected is $32,000,000, $569,720.07. That's 61.8% of the budget, and with a balance to collect of $20,129,856.93. For motor vehicle taxes, we have collected $1,099,261.35. That is 17.73% of the budgeted amount, leaving a balance of $5,100,738.65 to collect. The current year taxes is the sum of those two. So we've collected $33,668,981.42, which is 57.16% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $25,230,595.58. Delinquent taxes, we have collected $211,781.32. That is 30.25% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $488,218.68. Late listing penalties, we have collected $57,601.64, excuse me, which is 17.51% of the budget amount, leaving a balance of $271,298.36 to collect. And the overall tax levy, not counting the vehicle tax, we have collected the $32,569,720.07, being 62.78% of the total budget amount, with a balance to collect of $19,312,724.82. Any questions?
Thank you, John. Any questions, John, on these items?
Thanks, sir.
Unrelated, haven't heard in a while, I don't believe, from our tax attorney, Kanye. Maybe in the next month or two, you could give us a kind of a synopsis of what their activity's been for the last little bit.
All right, sir.
Anything else for John? All right, thank you very much. All right, this brings us to items for decision. First item comes from our county manager, approval of lease for the History Museum of Burke County. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just as a brief update, on the 19th of September, as instructed by this board in your August meeting, I've been working with the county attorney. We've met several times working on a lease draft for the Board of Commissioners to consider. The mechanics would require the History Museum to re-deed back to the county the building that they currently occupy, and in conjunction enter into this long-term lease. Statutorily, we can't go beyond 10 years for some level of moderate consideration that lessens the restrictions on the use of the building, which can be accomplished from an emollient's perspective because the deed isn't transferred. But ultimately, the goal is to allow increased flexibility in the use of the building to support museum operations. So we'll have that. I just talked to the county attorney, who said he's about a week out on having that lease draft to you for review, and simultaneously working on the deed transaction to put that building back in the county's name. The folks at the History Museum are well aware of where we are, and are in agreement with the process and the outcome. And as soon as we have those documents in hand, we will get those to you for your review, again, ahead of the September 19th meeting.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, it'll remain on the agenda. Item number 2 comes from also the county manager, Jones Ridge Waste and Recycling Convenience Center. This is a project placeholder. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and I'll point out that I apologize for all the placeholders, but sometimes we don't control the calendar. This item will hopefully be, and placeholder is contingent upon a couple items that include us successfully potentially rebidding this project. As you're all aware, we've had some contractual challenges that forced us into a rebid process. That project, which was originally began back in March, is about 50% complete approximately. And again, because of those contractual challenges, we've had to re-enter the market and rebid the remaining portion which triggered us to reengage first with our engineering design architectural team, McGill and Associates, who have worked and completed a rebidding package. We want to post that, and assuming that we get qualified bids back for you to consider ahead of the 19th meeting, our goal is to put those in front of you for consideration for the lowest reasonable firm, re-engaging them to get back to that site and working, and hopefully being substantially complete and at least minimally operational ahead of winter. So sometime at or before November 15th. We recognize that there's some very, very, very strict and thin timelines there that we're trying to hit. But that's the goal of this agenda item, is to have potentially contracts for continued construction for you all to consider.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian on this matter? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Thank you, sir. Item number 3 comes from Community Development, Jonas Ridge Cranberry Bog Design and Construction Documents Contract. This will be presented by Alan Glines. Alan?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is working with Phase 2, the section of the park for the Jonas Ridge area, the construction of the Cranberry Bog Park, and that we would like to enter into a contract with Equinox Environmental. They've been partnered with McGill for different parts of the project, so Phase 2 would be what they would focus on. Let's see if I've got some slides here. This project isn't, of course, it's something we've been working on for a while. The firm actually was selected, Equinox and McGill was selected back in 2020 through an RFQ process for proposals of that site. Next slide, please. But this project continues to align with your strategic plan that you've recently developed, and this would be under Focus Area 1, Community Advancement. This is investing in cultural capital and advancement strategies to promote participative governance that elevates a community to live, work, and play, while also positioning Burke County as a community of choice. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the part of the property that is the bog, we call the bog, it's about 16 acres. The convenience side, of course, which is right next door, is about 4 acres. So we kind of split that up. There are more restrictions and protections going to be in place for that 16-acre bog property. Foothills Conservancy holds a conservation easement on the property on behalf of the state of North Carolina, and some of our purchase funds came from the Clean Water Management Trust Fund from the state. Next slide, please. And this just reminds you of sort of the area master plan. And this is our first area here. This is that Phase 1 with the convenience site. And then this would be the bog park. And so there's obviously a lot of wetland areas in there. The project was divided into 2 phases just for the convenience of getting that the convenience site up there at Jonas Ridge started first, and then Phase 2 being considered today to contract for the development of final plans. This contract will include 2 master plan, kind of 2 designs that we are able to choose from based on the components of the site out there. Part of the work with this contract is the conceptual planning work, but Equinox will survey the tract of land, work with the Army Corps of Engineers to determine, it's called a jurisdictional determination for that wetland area. Once that's agreed upon with the Army Corps, then they'll develop, master plan kind of features out there that we can enjoy the resource without damaging the resource. So that's part of that master planning work, but it's a good effort to develop this jurisdictional determination. They'll also consider the possibility of reusing that older home on the site. They'll finalize a design based on our preferences, and then they'll develop construction docs. And then once the project's bid by Burke County staff, they would stay involved for construction observation. So that's what's included in this request for you all. And then final slide, please. There's some photos actually of the bog itself there. The total contract amount would be $127,632, and this request at the formal meeting will be to approve the contract for services.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions for Alan on this item? Seeing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This brings us to reports. End of year report, another placeholder. Mr. Manager.
Again, I apologize for the placeholder. Once the items are in place, though, I think that'll be a very positive thing. So we are working on a comprehensive end-of-the-year report. We've been working on this for about 45 days now. Customarily, it's well beyond the end of your fiscal year before you hear from your auditors and before you really hear from across the organization about how your strategic plan is being implemented and performing. So we are pulling data on performance measures that include financial, fund balance pro formas, revenue expense numbers for the year that just concluded June 30th, 2023. But we're also looking broader at travel tourism data, county economic information. We're looking at permitting and a variety of other areas across county government where we're tracking that align with your strategic plan. And we'll present that report to you on the 19th with a physical copy, and then I'll also be prepared to share a brief PowerPoint presentation highlighting components of that report, again, that includes a lot of operational and capital items that are our priority. So happy to answer any questions and excited about delivering this report to you all for the first time in recent history, at least that I know of.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian on this item? All right, hearing none. This will bring us to item number 8, other discussion items, and turn it back over to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. Okay. Gentlemen, appreciate your patience. Had to take a phone call. So item number 8, gentlemen, please submit your reports to the clerk ASAP for inclusion in the agenda packet. And some friendly reminders: don't litter, pick up trash, cover your loads to the convenience centers and landfill. And I am going to put Mr. Epley on the clock once again for a second and mention something that we talked about before the meeting, and we're going to repeat this over and over to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely, and I guess most impressively, this does not act as a placeholder for the time being. As the chairman and I discussed prior to the meeting, we are currently now engaged with a company that also subcontracts with DOT for roadside cleanup, and part of the effort for community beautification, as you recall, during the budget this year, we set aside some resources to do some marketing campaigns, some educational information. We want to do things like get in schools and get in front of students and talk to them about encouraging their parents and loved ones and families about the challenges of littering. Maybe it's partnering with river keepers and those type things, but a big part of it is just baseline cleaning up some of the trash that's already there. And again, we fundamentally know that community beautification and cleanup, litter prevention, doesn't start with picking up trash, but there is a role for that. And so we have a vendor that's now under contract, and we will be working to get something on our website and providing a mechanism for people that may want to share areas of concern throughout the county with commissioners, but also with the manager's office, so that if there are roads in the community that you want and believe need attention, that have a litter problem, we can get out there, apply some resources and get those cleaned up. Well, that's ready to go. And I believe that you'd ask that a small presentation be added to the agenda for September 19th.
Yes, sir. We've been preaching on this for so long, I thought, gentlemen, y'all wouldn't mind if I added that for a presentation. And our point of contact sheet will be up here to give a nice presentation and tell the folks how to reach out to the county to utilize these resources that thankfully we've set aside in the budget this year. So, thank you, Mr. Epley. Remind everybody to adopt or foster a pet from Animal Services. Please spay or neuter your pets as well. We got a special day coming up September 7th. I see our county attorney. It's JR's birthday. And I'm not going to ask how many. But did you ride in one of the original pre-ambulances like Commissioner Carswell is all I'll say?
Well, as my daughter used to say when she was just a tyke, it's 3011. That's the year.
Sounds good. Well, happy early birthday. Gentlemen, just a reminder, September 7th, we will have a Board of Commissioners, Board of Education Working Group meeting at 11 a.m. at Parker Road. September 8th, a special joint meeting between Board of Commissioners and the school board at 11 a.m. at Olive Hill. Lunch will be provided. Also, September 14th from 3 to 6 is the annual Customer Appreciation Community Shred event at Register of Deeds. This year, Register of Deeds is partnering with General Services and the Cooperative Extension Agency to accept household hazardous waste and medications and electronics. September 14th, ribbon cutting at the Burke Arts Council at 4 p.m. September 15th and 16th, the Friends of the Library Fall Book Sale will be held at the College Street Recreation Center. It's good to see that back again after COVID. And September 19th, our regular Board of Commissioners meeting will be held here in the chambers at 6 p.m. So, gentlemen, is there anything else to come before the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would, two things in particular. Please save the date of Wednesday, September the 13th. Dr. Stephen Lloyd will be in Burke County over at CAMA that day. If you'll remember, Dr. Lloyd was the subject matter in the Hulu presentation of Dope Sick. He was the prime candidate in that, I won't say prime candidate, but he was the number one targeted person in there in that presentation. Great guy to talk to. He has a great story about the Sackler family and OxyContin, which ties in with the presidential initiative, which is the second part of what I want to say to every one of you here today. You just do not know how humbled and proud I am to have all of y'all with us at the ceremonies in Raleigh. I just, it was great, and I think everybody left there with a renewed enthusiasm. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners is a great organization, and to be the 107th president of that association is humbling to me. And our family was there, my personal family and my county family. Thank you, Sharon, at the News Herald, for the kind article, that great article they put in about what occurred. We've got a long way to go. Commissioner Burns and Mr. Chairman will be on our board as we move forward through this year. The One More Thing initiative, we're getting unreal response from that. I received a telephone call today from a fellow who said, I've never told anybody, but on the telephone, he told me the story of his daughter. It was so, it moved my heart. I'm telling you, to hear somebody get on the telephone and say, one more thing makes a difference. So we'll continue that program. We're on a roll. I've called our first meeting of our executive board this week. We're going to hit the road running. But you guys, I don't know what to say to you. There's no words to say how much I love you and how much I appreciate you being there with me. The hardest thing to do is to stand up there and tell the story, especially when your wife is sitting down there and you tell the story of your son dying and what it meant to our family. But as we were talking a while ago, if we can save one more person from dying in Burke County or even in North Carolina, that's what we're here for. So I'm rambling. I need to stop. But again, thank all of you for there. Don't forget about September the 13th, if you would.
And for those of you that weren't there or haven't gone on to see Johnny's speech, incredible. Many of you out in the audience, I'll tell you, is one of the most moving speeches I've ever heard. New presidential speech. Maybe the 107th, but that's the number one. I can't imagine there's a better speech. It was moving, and Johnny expressed his personal story, and I can't tell you, and I can speak for all of us, because that was one of the happiest moments. But I think for all of us, we're beaming with pride that having one of our own, especially one that's, so we are so close to representing us. Every one of us is impressive. And like I said, we are proud. And it was a great day. It's going to be a great year and a great movement. And obviously, you have the full support of all of us here. And most of you were in attendance there, and that meant a lot. We really showed out. Burke County, we had probably close to 30 people there. And so pretty amazing. That speaks volumes to you. You get that big a crowd to come to Raleigh.
And we have to single out Willette McIntosh.
Oh, my goodness.
Of the singing of the national anthem. She has now been invited to go all over the world.
She did an amazing job. The whole event was just fantastic. So congratulations, congratulations. Well, gentlemen, is there anything else to come before the board? If not, we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Motion carried 4-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you, gentlemen.